guys have asked, how do you get into drifting? Where do I go drifting? Look, I don't even know where to start. First thing, all you have to do is Google drifting in my area. Like, not drifting in my area, but like drifting in, Boston, Massachusetts, drifting in Hartford, Connecticut, drifting in wherever, right? Wherever you guys are, there's gonna be a forum, there's gonna be a Facebook group, there's gonna be a professional website done for drifting in your area. So that's overall the first thing that you need to do. Just research, right? Research where, whatever. Going to events, bringing a car to an event is expensive. Okay, it's not cheap. This is a motorsport. It is not cheap. I don't condone this, okay? I don't condone this, but this is how I learned, so I'm going to share my experience with you. You can take that information any way you want to, okay? So I'll give you guys a little bit of a rundown on how I started to drift myself, okay? So how I started to drift myself was Jesse and our buddy Victor back in the day were like, hey, do you know how to do a burnout? And I was like, no, I'm not really. And they're like, okay, well, we're going to teach you how to do a burnout. They taught me how to do a burnout. So that was my first step, learn how to do a burnout. Then my next step was, I was working at the gym certain nights, and if it rained out, I always had to do this U-turn, right? I always had to take this U-turn. So they taught me how to do a burnout. So whenever the light turned green, I would do a mini burnout, and I would kind of go around the corner, around the U-turn and whatnot. And again, sketchy, so I'm not telling you guys to do it, but like this is, again, my process of how I learned. Then we get to the fun part. So we had the drift car. Again, that was my daily back in the day. Now we had the drift car built, okay? Well, somewhat built to where it was. I talked to Mark one night. Mark's like, hey, I got a spot where I learned how to do some stuff, so I want to teach you, how to kind of keep the car in drift. It was honestly, at that point in time, it was more like a takeover style where it was just a big donut, like a widened donut, okay? So he basically, one night we went to this industrial park where he knew where it was. I had no idea where it was. And he was like, hey, we're going to learn how to do a donut. And I've never done a donut in my life. And he was like, I'm going to teach you how to do it. Basically, it was just a random industrial park where he knew where it was. And he was like, we're going to hit this. It was late at night. No one was around. And it was way after business hours and whatnot. And he showed me how to do it. And, I was there. I think we were there. I think we hit it like maybe 5-6 times. He went 5 times. I went 5 times. And then we got out of there, obviously just not to get in trouble. Then moving from there, we kind of went all over places. We spent nights, literally nights. Julian would come over to my house, and we would probably spend 3-4 hours just on Google Maps. On Google Maps of looking at areas where, there wasn't a residential area, so people wouldn't be complaining about the car noise, but then also where businesses were closed at certain times. We would go on Google Maps, Google Earth, and just like zoom in and, just look at areas and whatever. And we were also like looking at like response time when like people if there were someone to be called, how long it kind of would take them to get to that area and whatnot, if they weren't on patrol or whatever. So there's a lot of research that we did to get into it. So I'm glad that I'm sharing this wisdom and information with you guys. So maybe you guys can kind of get in there and, it'll just be like a guiding light for you guys. And then from doing that for about, a couple months, I got into my first event. It was Lock City. A cold day in March, one of the coldest days I've ever did. Pulled an all-nighter. It's actually on the channel if you want to watch that footage. It was a cold day. We pulled an all-nighter. We had like an hour of sleep, I think, right before. And then we went to the event and whatever. And that was my first event. And the thing about going to events, if you're just learning how to drive at an event, you don't get a lot of seat time. You pay a lot of money, and you don't get a lot of seat time because everyone's trying to do this, right? Like legally and not being able to get in trouble. So everybody wants to do that. So a lot of people come. And again, it's fun. I never had a problem going to an event. I always had fun. But again, if you guys are trying to learn and be able to make the most of your seat time at an event, that's why I say you might need to go the other route. And then after a couple of events, Matt found a spot where he used to work, and it was behind this industrial building, no residential area. It was all industrial, and we hit that spot every weekend, Friday nights, Saturday nights, very late, very, very late. And sometimes during the day on a Sunday right after the business is closed, but we hit that spot for months, and that was like the best of the best, that spot that we found. Once you find a good safe area where you don't really have to worry about external sources, and it's a safe environment, you'll be able to hit that spot as much as you want. And then it came down to, you know, a couple people reached out to me, some actually famous YouTube people reached out to me, and they're like, hey, like local to the area, they're like, hey, like, where's this spot? Like, where are you guys going? This and that, this and that. And, you know, I talked with the guys, and I was like, listen, like, one, you know, selfishly, it would be a good hookup for, you know, like us, like the channel and whatever, because then we might be featured and everything like that. But the guys put a kibosh on that. They were like, listen, man, like if we bring them, then that means they're going to bring their boys, and then there's going to be 100 people here. It's basically going to be a drift event here. And they're like, we can't let that happen, this and that. And I totally respected that. So I told, you know, said 2 YouTubers from Connecticut, hey, like, can't let it, unfortunately, like, I can't really give out the info. And yeah, that was that. So I would say, if you find a spot, keep it to yourself. Don't tell anybody, keep it to yourself. And then unfortunately, you know, some time has passed by. It was basically, I think, like we hit that spot, I think, for 2 summers, I believe. No issues. And then, you know, one night, someone was patrolling the area. They finally came through, and they're like, hey, like, you guys can't be here, this and that. And we left and never went back. And then a couple months later, we found out they turned it into a football field, a baseball field, and there's like a parking area with like islands in it that you wouldn't even be able to drift in. So, yeah, it's kind of sad, but at that time, though, that's where I learned how to drive. Like, this whole piece for you guys right now, that's where I learned how to drive, was a huge cement pad behind a building, and that's where I learned how to transition, really understood the car, how it's going to react on different clutch kicks, and letting the wheel do its thing, and, you know, self-steer and everything like that. Even like a little tandeming we got into, donuts, U-turns, figure eights. That's where I learned, was a pad of cement that we did research on, that Matt found, that we went to, and we did that. So if you're wanting to get into drifting, it's all about seat time. Seat time, seat time, seat time. It doesn't matter if your car looks sick like this. It doesn't matter if your car has 800 horsepower. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I learned in this car had 225 horse to the crank, and it looked like a crap box. It looked nothing like how it looks now, right? And I had the most fun, the most seat time, and I learned how to drive. So to answer your question, how do you get into drifting? Where can I do it safely? Look up organizations around you, do your research on Google Earth, and just be safe about it and be smart about it. These are dangerous, right? Like, cars are dangerous. Anything motorsport is dangerous. So as long as you're just smart and you have a plan set up with your buddies, yourself, whatever, this and that, I mean, you're good to go. If you're not with a million people, like these takeovers or whatever, cops will actually kind of be cool. The boys will actually be kind of cool with you. They'll be like, hey, listen, like, man, you can't do that here. Like, it's cool, whatever, this and that. Most of them, as long as they're not on, like, you know, some power trip or whatever. But most of them, any police that I've got into, I wasn't doing anything crazy or anything like that. They've been super cool. They're like, listen, man, like, I could bag you, I could impound the car, this and that. Just get out of here and don't come back. And we're like, all right, see ya. So as long as you're respectful and nice and make sure your car's registered and insured and whatever, you should be okay. But again, I'm not condoning this. So at your own risk, do what you need to do. But that's my experience of how I learned from each step of the way to getting to events, to getting from C class to B class to A class and tandeming with the boys. If you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button right here. And if you're looking for any additional content, just click one of the links here. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.